Welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here. And I need to acknowledge for a moment that you are amongst company of a whole bunch of really brilliant women. You don't know each other, but we have like a dance therapist, storytelling, somatic genius, and like medical workers and writers and ceremony leaders. And like you are in really potent company in this moment, the sea of women's faces that I see. And that's wonderful. And Rachel's got a part. We've got a man in the dangerous women. I love that. It's important for them too, right? To listen in. Because the stuff isn't gendered, right? But then at the same time, having these spaces to look at things through a feminine lens is really a beautiful gift. Um, I'm going to start by reading you a poem, two poems from the same poet that I've been reading for like months to everyone. So I'm sorry if I sound like an old man to some of you who's like, oh, here we go again with these same poems from Rosemary Trotter. And also, I apologize for my voice. I'm still, like I said, kind of getting over some illness. But I'm going to start by reading you a couple poems. And then I'm going to tell you a story, one that some of you have heard from me before, or you might have read from other comparative mythologists and other people. Um, it's one of the stories I've been telling the longest. I would say I've been telling this story for 10 years. And what I would encourage for you, especially if it's a story you've heard before, is the thing is every time we listen to these stories, they crack open a different door. You know, it's like one time you're listening to it and you're the old man in the hat, and the next time you listen to it, you're the tree that the witch was leaning up against. And the next time you hear it, you're the devastated maiden in the forest. And or you notice some detail that you had never noticed before, even though, like me, there's a Russian story I'm getting ready to tell in Sicily. I've been telling this story for 6 years. I have read it in multiple formats. I have given it to a Russian friend to translate for me. And I just found a new detail in the story yesterday that was like a flashing neon sign punched me in the gut, had me sobbing on my couch, detail of the story that somehow, and I was looking back through my notes and stuff, I've written about it before. How wild is that? Like, I have written analysis of this little symbol in the story, and it had never touched me before. So that's kind of the beauty of story and the mythic ground, is that it's alive and it's always alive. And that's the beauty of oral story versus when things get written down and overly flushed out and reduced. Martin Shaw, one of my teachers, talks about this a lot, that when things become literature, they become static and the meaning gets like overly flushed out, which is one of the beautiful things about oral story. And then after the story, we'll chat a minute. I'll do a little bit of analysis, even though I just said it's not a good thing to overly reduce the story, and that's not my intention, but I want to give you some things to chew on that are really alive for me. You're the perfect crowd for this because it's stuff about midlife. And if you're not in midlife yet, it will become relevant so you can think of some seeds being planted. And then we're going to do a very gentle Katona yoga practice for the kidneys. And it will make sense why we're practicing for the kidneys after the analysis bit. I will say now, in traditional Chinese medicine, your kidneys, your organs are emotive. It's an esoteric dialogue, not in mystical dialogue, not a medical dialogue. But the kidneys are your personal waters. They're your ancestral waters. They're your embodiment. They're like your personal soup, right? And they are very much connected to your fear, but also your sentience. They're the storehouses of your life force, your qi in Chinese medicine. So when we keep the kidneys really healthy in this esoteric way, it is said that we will have the energy to fulfill our destiny, to have the willpower to move through the next season, that we will have the sentience, the good hearing, because great nature is very generous and you have eyes to see and ears to hear and a nose to sniff out a situation, that you will have the tenacity to see something through. So we're going to practice for the kidneys in a very gentle way, which is what the kidneys need because they're like a battery pack. And when your qi is diminished, Chinese medicine says you start draining your jing, which is you have a limited supply of. So we don't want that. So it's really important to keep the kidneys nourished. I will say you get Jing infusions at different periods in your life, according to the Chinese, and one of them happens in midlife. One of the big ones, because you fucking need it. Pardon my language. You really need it, especially my perimenopausal, menopausal women. Can I get an amen? You need the infusion of Jing to get through. Okay, so let's start with the poem. These are two poems from Rosemary Trotter. They have almost nothing to do with the story. I just like them. The first one is called Belonging. And if it is true we are alone together, the way blades of grass are alone but exist as a field. Sometimes I feel it, the green fuse that ignites us, the wild thrum that unites us, and the inner hum that reminds us of our shared humanity. Just as 35 trillion red blood cells join in one body to become one blood, just as 136,000 notes make up one symphony. Alone as we are, our small voices weave into the one big conversation. Our actions are essential to the one infinite story of what it is to be alive. When we feel alone, we belong to the grand communion of those who sometimes feel alone. We are dust, the dust that hopes, a rising of dust, a thrill of dust, the dust that dances in the light with all the other dust, the dust that makes the world. It's so good. And my very favorite poem for the last 6 months, also by Rosemary Trotter, is called Simple Tools. I am so grateful for the rubber spatula, the way it sits quietly in the drawer yet is always ready for action, is game to scrape the walls of the blender or fold chocolate chips into dough. It evens and swirls the frosting on cake and welcomes the tongue of a child. In a sharp world, it knows the value of being blunt. It knows that to smooth is a gift to the world. Some people are knives, and I thank them. But me, I want to belong to the order of spatulas, those who blend, who mix, who commingle dissimilars to create a cohesive whole. I want to spread sweetness, to be a workhorse for beauty, to stir things up, to clean things out. I want to be useful, an instrument of unity, a means, a lever for life. Love it. And for my English as a second language speakers, in case it wasn't clear, a spatula is that thing you use to make the torta and scrape the edge of the bowl for the sweetie things. I probably should have said that before I read the poem, but it's too late now. But be a spatula, spread some sweetness. Okay. This is an Aleutian story from Siberia, and it's a story of a changeling woman. And there are lots of stories of changeling women from around the world, and almost always, I will say before I tell the story, there's a new one up on my Substack called Wolfskin from Croatia. Almost always, when you have one of these stories, there is a period where the woman is trapped in her human form, either because she's been kidnapped and forced to marry, because she fell in love, or some variation of this, and there's a moment where she forgets her own skin. And these things are not gendered, even though I said, we're talking about some women stuff. That is like a very superficial way to look at a story, is in terms of the way that we conceive of gender. Until you can identify with every single character in a story, you haven't got the whole thing. Douglas Brooks, my very first oral story teacher and longtime yoga teacher, always says you're all the gods and all the demons and every character in the story if you don't let yourself off the hook. So it's not about that women get married and are trapped and forget their skin. A man can be married and a father and lose his skin and forget his seal skin, his wolf skin, okay? Especially because we've got Rachel's partner here. I want to acknowledge that. This isn't about men kidnapping women and they lose their identity. That is a very sort of almost vapid way to look at the story. And I would tell you before we even begin that it's much deeper than romantic relationships, though of course that is one level of analysis that we can bring to the story, and it's a worthwhile analysis. Okay? So we are already, just even with that, starting to step into mythic ground, into fairyland, into the 10th ocean that lies beyond the ninth. So you have to suspend your imagination a little bit, suspend reality a little bit, and let the story do what it does. The goal isn't for you to understand all the details or to have memorized it when you walk out. Wherever it awakens or cracks open a little door, that's your moment. And that's all that matters. Okay? So we say in English, once upon a time. But I could just as well say, in a time before there was anyone to hear this story, implying that the story is older than human ears, or before there was a human mouth to tell it, implying that it's before a storyteller ever existed, there was a dark forest. There's always a dark forest, isn't there? And Michelle, what do we call the dark forest? The place you go into and never come out. Never come out. Right? We're not going all the way into the dark forest this time, at least not yet. On the edge of this dark forest, there lived a hunter. And he was not an ordinary hunter. I mean, if you've ever been to where I grew up, there are some ugly hunters. Old men in the forest that I grew up near when we were in our teepee in the woods, men with very scary guns hiding behind very scary beards. This man, though, is next level hideous. He's an ugly man. The ugliest of ugly men. It is catastrophic how ugly this man is. He was never chosen at prom, that kind of thing. A real loner. And not only is he catastrophically ugly, but one of the reasons he is so ugly is because he only has one eye. Now, if he is a cyclops or if he lost the eye, I don't know. It never said in the story. That's for you to imagine and decide. But what I know is he has one bloodshot, seeing, sagging, horrific eye. And on top of being ugly and having one eye, he is wildly secretive. Now, anyone who has a partner knows how much secrets can damage a relationship. And all of us know what holding secrets can do to our own psyche. There is a very big difference between the nobility of privacy and secrecy. So she's got a one-eyed, horrifically ugly, incredibly secretive husband. And they got married quite young. This hunter, ugly, one-eyed hunter, and this very sweet woman. They were married very young. Now, if you were to come across this woman now, and you were lucky enough to have the time to invite her out for whatever your favorite beverage is, a glass of wine in Rome, or a cup of coffee, or a cup of tea, there's a few questions that you would probably want to ask her. Questions that she gets asked all the time. And the first question that she gets asked all the time is, okay, I don't mean to be, how do I say this? I don't mean to be rude, but your husband is hideous, catastrophically ugly. Does this not bother you? And here's what she would tell you. She would say, he was ugly when I met him. He was ugly when I married him. And he'll be ugly until I die. And I chose him. He's mine. And the next question that you might be tempted to ask her would be about the eye. And you would say, okay, he was catastrophically ugly when you met him, but doesn't it bother you that he's got that one sagging, bloodshot, singular eye? And she would look at you with a little lift to the chin, and she would say, I love a man of singular vision. I love a man of singular vision. And now, if you've ever spent any time around fairy tales, how many things happen in fairy tales? Hold up your fingers for me because we have to be interactive because I can't hear you making sounds. Oh, okay, but how many things happen in fairy tales? What do things always happen in threes? Coralie knows things happen in threes. So there's a third question, of course there is. And if you asked her the third question, because she's a whole glass of wine down now and the tongue is a little more loosened, your third question would be, but don't you mind how secretive he is? And this question, she's not quick to reply anymore. When she was younger, she was quick to reply, but now in her 40s, the secretiveness, it's been eating away at her. You ever had someone you were tempted to start checking their phone, or you had some suspicions about a friend or a situation, deep intuitive feeling that something wasn't right, couldn't put your finger on it? That had been brewing for a long time. So this time, after you asked her that question over that glass of wine, when she got home, she decided in her mind that she was going to follow him the next day. And she was going to follow him the next day because there's something she's been aching for the totality of her life, which was to understand the way in which his heart moved. And he was so secretive, he was locked up so tight, there was no disclosure. And so she decided to follow him. So the next morning, she sneaks out of the hut and she starts to follow him into the woods, and something very strange happens. The moment that he steps foot across the threshold into the dark forest that you go into and never come out, the minute he steps into the dark forest, his whole mood changed. Now, there's two versions of this story that I've read, very old, and one of them it says that there was a dark humor that came over him. But the version that has always resonated with me more says the opposite. It says a lightness came over him, that his whole mood shifted as he moved out of the domestic and into the wild. And as she's following him, his movement patterns and his dancing and his steps are getting stranger and stranger and stranger. And there's a moment where they come into a meadow and he starts to sing. And as he's singing, he's opening up his arms nice and wide towards the rising sun. And it's almost as if he is calling the sun up. And as she's watching this, something, it's too much. She is seeing something in its essence for the first time and it's too much. You know, that moment when you quit romanticizing something after a long time and you are just forced to see the bare naked truth of it? That's what's happening. It is Crohn's sight, clear seeing. All illusions drop. And in that moment, she realizes she has absolutely had enough. She cannot continue and spend another 50 years in this marriage or even another 10, and she turns around and flees. She makes a decisive action to leave behind everything that was comfortable, everything that was, and to step into a shrouded, unclear future. And as she starts to run, freedom starts to wash over her. Have you ever had this feeling? You make one of those big moral decisions in life and you don't know what you're doing, but there's just like an elation to it, even though you are terrified and also grieving everything you just left. That's what's happening. That feeling. And sure as shit, pardon my language, the moment I was like, I'm not going to swear today. And there it was for the second time. I apologize. But it's a big moment, you know? So, right when she's taking off and that feeling's washing over her, a giant picks her up and says, there's one of you every hour, and I'll be having you next. Tosses her into his tent. It's so often this way, the moment that we take the big risk, the moment that we answer the soul's call, right? Knocked straight onto your bum, knocked straight onto your back, and you're like, I thought that I was doing the right thing. I thought I was honoring my inner wisdom. I was following my intuition. My life coach told me that if it was a full body yes, that I was making the right choice. And my therapist said that it was very clear I was moving in the right direction. And now I'm in a giant's tent. Relatable? Relatable. And she's sitting on the ground in this dark tent, and there is so much grief washing over her. Grief for the loss of her husband, grief for the comfort of her old life, grief like, I'm so stupid. Why did I follow him? I didn't know yesterday. I could have just continued in my own satisfied, familiar delusion. Grief. And also, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to die here. And then a voice. And it doesn't say if it's her own voice, a divine voice, the voice of a spirit, but there's a voice. And the voice says, look up, look up. And she looks up to the ceiling of the tent and sees an inky black cloak of raven feathers. And immediately hope rises. Look, I'm going to put on the raven suit. I'm going to put on the raven suit. And she finds her way, climbs up to the top of the tent, grabs a hold of the raven suit, tumbles to the ground, and starts trying to put a foot into the bottom, pull her arms into the wings, but they won't fit. Now, have you ever tried to put a sports bra on after a hot yoga class? That's what's happening here. It is like, the sweat tangled. You guys looked really serious. I had to make it. She's, and there's still like another sweat with the tears, and it will not fit. And in a moment of just complete grief, agitation, she rips it off and throws it to the ground. I can't even trust my own inner voice. I can't even trust my own inner voice. Again, I listened to the call of my own soul, or at least I thought it was the call of my own soul. Total grief. Sitting in front of this inky black raven's coat. Beautiful raven's cloak, but not for her, not her skin. And as she's sitting there, this time there is no voice. It's something much smaller. It's a nudge. It's something quieter than a voice, an instinct to look up. And this time, in the half light of the tent, she sees the red pelt of a fox, white-tipped tail, hanging stunningly. And she climbs up and she pulls it down. And this time, when she reaches out for it, it's almost like it reaches back for her. It's like there's a mutual caress happening. And it slips on perfectly. And right when it slips on, she catches the scent of the wind. And when she catches the scent of the wind, she realizes how she can get out. Now, I don't know if it occurred to you, but had she gotten into that raven suit, she'd have been banging against the ceiling for the rest of her life or till she knocked herself out, because there was no way out of the top. She catches the scent of the wind and she takes off running outside. And as she's running, she does what we so often do. What do you think her first thought was? I'll go to my first home. Anyone ever gone home to their parents' house? I'll go to my hometown and start over. They know me there. They know me there. And so she takes off running to her settlement. And as she gets close to the settlement, so there's the settlement and then there's this giant deep lake. And as she's running up towards the settlement, she decides to stop and take a drink. And when she leans over the water, which, by the way, you have to think, so this is the place where she first knew herself as a child, because this is a very old story and there were no mirrors. And when she was a child and she used to go salmon fishing with her father, this was the first place that she ever saw her own true face. And as she approaches this lake where she has seen her true face, she peers down into the water and realizes that she is no longer wearing the cloak of a fox. She is a fox. She looks up in this moment and sees her father's kayak coming towards the shore. He has spotted the fox, and he knows that it's not a good thing to have a fox near the village, a wild creature. And he comes to the shore, and for several hours, like the sighing of the tides, he is trying to catch her, and she is trying to catch his attention to make him see that it's her, that it's his daughter. And he's, beef jerky and salmon, trying to catch her with the net, and she's evading his movements. And eventually, this goes on the whole of the day into the evening. He gives up and he bends down to the little fox and he says, "The village is no place for wild things. You need to go." And she has this moment of realizing that her father's house is no longer the place for her. And yet she needs to go and see her mother. She's like, maybe my mother will understand. So she goes into the settlement and finds her tent. And this is a very important detail to the story. And I'm going to tell you two versions right now, which I don't often do when I'm telling a story. I like to stick with one path, but this is a very interesting detail, and I feel compelled to share it. In one version of the story, as she runs towards the house, every time she tries to go to the door, the house turns and she bashes her nose on the wood, and a drop of blood falls into the snow. Second time she's trying to run, the house turns again and she bashes her nose, a second drop of blood. And everything in threes. A third time she runs, smashes her nose, and a third drop of blood falls. But there is another version of this story from Alaska where, as she's trying to run to the door, her own animal body contorts her away from the door and won't let her enter. 3 times. She is head set on going in, and her animal body says, "No, that's not our home anymore," and pulls her away. I'll let you sit with whichever one is speaking to you. In that moment, she realizes that sometimes we can't return to what was. It's like Brene Brown says, once you're in the arena, you can't go back. She's in the arena now. And she turns and takes off running into that shrouded unknown. Across the high meadows, farther and farther up into the alpine valleys, up into the mountains. And as she's running, something spectacular happens. Now, we are in a very dark part of the world, Siberia, northern Alaska, where it is dark most of the year. But this particular village and lake were always super, super dark because there was nothing in the sky but the moon. And on this day, as she's running, paw after paw after paw, each time her paw goes down, a star rises and lights up the sky. Another, 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 as she runs through the night. And they say that even today, that she is still running through the high mountains, lifting the stars into the sky. And they say that the hunter aches for her in the whole of his body and marvels at the night sky. So one of my teachers, Martin Shaw, always has us at the end of a story. He just asks us the simple question, where are you in the story? And I would invite you, it can be one word or a sentence, not a big long explanation. Just unmute yourself and identify. You can even just say the fox, the giant. It doesn't have to be a big explanation, but I'd invite you to tell us where you are in the story. I'll start. My animal body won't let me go in the door.
I'm running and creating stars.
Love that for you. Pardon my camera issue. I can still hear you guys.
I'm realizing that the raven skin does not fit, and now I'm turning towards the fox skin.
Thank you, Michelle.
Putting the fox skin on.
It's a juicy moment.
Finding the fox skin.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Maybe getting out of the tent and thinking about going to the home village.
Yeah, thinking about leaving the tent and going home. Anyone else? It's an invitation, by the way, not an obligation. Yeah. It's a big story. It's, like I said, one I've been telling the longest. And um, I wrote down some new notes today, new thoughts about this story that I'll share with you. And I will say these stories all speak to each other. And if you are curious about another story that is similar to this, the story that I just put up on my Substack a few days ago, that story is still free. I leave everything free for like 2 weeks before I knock it onto the paid subscribers only. But it's called Wolfskin, and it's a very different sort of story, but not. And it speaks, this story and that story are having a date, a coffee date. So you might go give it a listen as well. It's a shorter story, especially because I was just telling it without an audience, which is a very different thing. Any storyteller can tell you it's very weird to record stories without an audience. So the tone will be different. This story was used historically. I'm going to go into anthropology mode now. It was originally used often to speak with young girls that were going to become shamans, that had been chosen for the shamanic path. For those of you that don't know, the actual shamans are from Siberia. It's a tribal word. It's specific to a very particular culture. You can't technically be a shaman from another place. It is very anchored in one place. My field, anthropologists, we took that word and started using it in the late 1800s to describe anyone who had any characteristics similar to this particular group of people, because we were looking for a unified theory of culture. So just a little bit of history. So this, I mean, literally the story is from this people group. It was told to girls that they had identified as shamans. And part of why is because that was a very lonely path, and they were going to be ones who were sending stars up into the sky but running alone. So that is one level of analysis of this story. It's one way that we can look at it, but I think it's very beautiful and worth acknowledging. That was the first acupuncture point for me with this story personally, because I knew that background from studying comparative mythology at university. And when I read it, I had a real lone wolf syndrome when I was younger that I've only found my way out of in my late 30s and early 40s. And I was like, not because I thought I was a shaman, but because I was like, I have to run alone. And I'm just always going to be kicked out of the village. And so it was like a very painful story for me, actually, in the beginning. It wasn't the hope story that I see it as now. So there's a lot of levels of analysis, right? We could look at this relationally. We've all had, we've woken up next to a partner and realized we didn't know them, and that they were too secretive, and that we had suspicions about them, and the romance has fallen away, and we have to make a very difficult choice, right? There is that level of analysis. But the level of analysis I wanted to bring or offer to you today is about midlife. When we start entering midlife, it's like you are caught up in a current and you are at the edge of a waterfall and you're going over, baby, whether you like it or not. You know, like it's happening and you can't swim to the other shore. There's no rocks to grab onto. You're going over the edge. And during this time, you know, we have all these stereotypes about midlife crisis. I don't know if this is true cross-culturally for my German and other friends that are on this call, but I can tell you in the United States, there's a lot of films and whatnot about a midlife crisis where suddenly, you know, the man buys a Ferrari and starts dating a 20-year-old and whatever. And it was especially attributed to men, ignoring that women might go through a big shift, right? In the films, it's always a man, right? Midlife crisis. I don't think it's a crisis. In traditional Chinese medicine, in your 40s and your 50s, it's a very pivotal time when you are actually stepping into your Ming, your golden path. Because before that, they say you actually can't, because you are busy developing yourself and being a parent and going through all the wild, youthful things. In fairy tales, it's the red. You are in the red period of life. It is youthful indiscretion, and it's trying stuff out and figuring your way through. And midlife and especially the late 40s to 50s, early 50s, is this very important period where you are no longer having to give your energy to other people's Ming, their golden path, and you get to direct it to your own. And my argument about this period of life is that it's the time when you get to become the most yourself, not less of yourself. And yet we are taught to grieve that we are saying goodbye to our lives. Like you look at film and stuff, it's the transition, especially for women, where you're supposed to become invisible now, isn't it? You're supposed to turn into the little old quiet old lady who doesn't dress a certain way anymore and who blah blah blah, right? Like you're supposed to fade into the shadows now and be less because your life is over. Your maiden period, your mother period, which is what you were made for, is done, and now you are nothing. But that is not true. It is the time period when we get to become most ourselves, and that's the real invitation. And I believe personally that this whole midlife crisis thing is a symptom of that we don't tend to this period of life. And we are not taught that what is just dying is that youthful indiscretion and fervor and old, outdated ways of being, and that we're actually being invited into our fullest dimensionality. And because it's not honored, respected, tended to, encouraged, we end up with a bunch of people when the moment happens where you go over the cliff edge, and some of you might have already experienced this. You wake up suddenly one day and you're like, it's like you are the heroine in a story that you got into unwittingly. You're the fool in the fairy tale that you're like, I don't even know how I ended up here. How is this my life? Right? And suddenly you're like, how did this happen? What am I even doing? And it's when suddenly you're questioning maybe a situation, your friendships, your job. Some people wake up questioning their partner, right? Like all this disruption happens. And the unfair irony of it is that you just ended the instability of youth. Like your 20s and 30s, you are like, you're getting more and more sure, but you're like trying on a million raven coats and crow coats and baby seal coats, and like you're figuring out your financial stability. You don't know what kind of relationship you want, like all this stuff. And then right when there's like a grounding of stability, the universe is like, whoop-ah! Welcome to midlife, over the edge of the waterfall. Question everything. Am I wrong? Right? Like suddenly, like right, and it feels so unfair and then what does society tell you? The overculture, the cultural mother tells you that now is the time that you should have it figured out and be matured and be stable, and it's not time for reckless decisions anymore. So it feels very, very scary to run away from the one-eyed ugly man in the forest and take off running when the stakes are so high. Because the stakes feel higher and higher the older you get, the stakes feel higher. It's like, oh, well, I probably shouldn't go bungee jumping. If I twist my ankle when you're younger, you're like, it's going to be amazing. It's a silly example, but you become more risk adverse. And the irony of that is that's the time when we're invited into this thing. And part of the wake up that happens is because you're stepping into the crone's vision. Crone means clarity of seeing. Crone comes from the word corona, and it's the wisdom. That's what the crone, the hag is. It's the one who can see clearly. It's the great mother. And she's very terrifying. She's Baba Yaga, Kali shit. I just swore again. I'm really trying not to swear. So she becomes relegated by society to the warded, ugly hag, because there's nothing more terrifying than an audacious human being living their biggest, boldest life, and especially an older one, right? So for me, this story, if you've been in any comparative mythology or anthropology classes, you might have heard of Arnold Grenup's work and heard these terms severance, threshold, and return, right? That comes from anthropology, but it's very popular in New Age circles now, and especially in comparative mythology. This is a story of severance and threshold and return. Now, normally that is relegated to teenagers, right? Like when you are initiated into adulthood, which is what anthropologists were writing about, threshold, this severance, threshold, and return that happens when you're initiated. But it happens again at midlife, and it's described in this story. Where is the severance? The wake up moment, right? When she's like, I gotta go. This story that I have woken up in is no longer true for me. There are things that need to die, things that need to be let go of. And no matter your age, because a couple of you are not in midlife yet, that's crone wisdom, is to know when to let things die and when to cut the death cord. So there's this moment where she starts to step into that insight. Her soul wakes up. Something, in this case, something happened, but there's an alertness. And the severance happens. She leaves. And then what happens? Immediately plucked out by the giant, straight into threshold, dark cave, winter, right? Right into winter's edge. This pairs so beautifully with TCM when you think about winter, right? The winter element of the seasonality. So it's the spring. You know, I told you she was young and got married. And then she has this springs rising romance situation. There's the summer fervor and heat of it where it's almost overly ripe. The questions are like bursting, like the figs hanging from the trees. And then what happens? The killing energy of fall. It's metal. The metal in Chinese medicine, those of you that were at my fall class, it's the killing energy. It strikes things down. It's very piercing. And metal refines things. And it's what we move into in old age after midlife. It's dominated by metal element in Chinese medicine. It's the refinement, the polishing of things, stripping back to what matters. And this is what happens here. She is forced to let go of everything. She can't go home, right? And then what's the return in this story? She tries to go home to her parents' house and realizes she can't, and she has to return to herself. But something really spectacular happens. The other way we could frame this is through the white and the black and the red, which Martin speaks about a lot, as does Marie Van. Oh gosh, I have a pile of her books over there and I just forgot her last name. Very famous Jungian psychologist. She was Carl Jung's best, like closest confidant and friend and student, and she's a fairy tale analyst, that's the word I'm looking for. But she speaks also a lot about the white, the black, and the red, which show up in fairy tale. So the red is that fervor of youth and that charging forward. The black is the isolation, the brittleness, the disillusionment that is normal and comes as our dreams get bashed down. We move through different periods and give up on certain things. And the white, if we're lucky enough to live that long in story, is the wise one who then has something to offer back to the community, something of real substance. If we have the grace and the wherewithal, the kidney energy to see it through. She moves into the white in this story. She gives a gift of light. And it's a very particular kind of light. It's starlight. It's not sunlight, it's starlight. I'm not even going to explain that. I could, but I'm going to let you just like sit with that because I'm giving you a lot to chew on. What's different about this too from youth, and then we'll take a little break and I'll set up the mat and stuff and also just let you guys ask any questions. Or I have like 12 pages of notes about this story, but I can't tell you everything, you know. I'll have to leave you some things to ponder. But I will say there's a connection between the raven and the starlight. That's all I'm gonna say. So there is something where she does in a way get to be a raven. I've lost my own train of thought. Oh, I remember. It's when you're young and you're going through the first threshold experience, right? It's you're tested, right? You think about the stories, they get tested over and over again. There's 3 tests, right? There's going to be 3 tests. That's not what happens in stories about midlife. And even here, this wasn't a test. No one was testing her. There wasn't a spirit there telling her, grab the raven suit. It's a tempering and it's different. There is tests, I believe, take my word for nothing, practice everything, but there are tests when we are younger, especially in initiations, right? You need to go hunt and bring us back a deer. That's a test. You need to go complete this task. It's a test. There's no test here. It's just a tempering, and it's different. And it is that tempering that becomes the grace from which she's able to give something back to her community. This is, I think, really important because years ago I read this book called oh, I forgot the author's name right now. I'm usually really good at quoting off names to people, as most of you know, but one of the gifts of perimenopause is words falling out of your head. He wrote a book called Die Wise, and then he also wrote this book that I can't think of the name of, but the subtitle is A Case for Elderhood in Times of Trouble.
Stephen
Rachel knows.
Jenkinson. Yeah,
Thank you,
I have
Stephen
those books.
Jenkinson. Brilliant man, right? So that book on elderhood, ever since I read it, I was just walking around, become the elder that you seek, become the elder that you seek, become the ancestor that you seek, to myself and to my students. That's what these stories are inviting us into, is how do we become the ancestor that we seek, to bring the starlight back to the community, to have something, to be able to carry our limp well. Martin just said when people were asking him this summer, how to become a mentor and an elder, that it's when you can carry your limp well. When you can carry your limp well. I'm not going to over explain that. It reminded me of years ago, I told my students that the people you are safest with is like the scary motorcycle dude that's like smiling at you real big and offering you a hand that looks terrifying, because that bro's been to the underworld like 7 times and he's not scared of your bullshit. And there's nothing you're going to say that they're going to judge or be afraid of. Those are the safest people, people that have traveled to the underworld and really been through some stuff and carry their limp well. That's what we're after. I don't want to reduce the story too much, and I have more teaching on this in a course that I'm teaching soon. So I have to save some of the pages for the course from my notebooks. But does anyone have anything they want to share or offer, or a wisdom, that something that stuck out to you? Because you're all, like I said at the beginning, there's a whole bunch of really brilliant people here. So you might have something to say.
Yeah, I would just say, because I got stuck on this changing from the raven to the fox this time around, and perhaps the raven was something to do with what she had already known, how she, when she had a skin, it was something of a raven, and so when she saw the thing that was familiar to her, to get her out of that situation, being stuck in the cave, and it was like, no, you can't go back and use the thing that you're used to. Same with, you can't go back to your village. So it's I'm letting that kind of cook in me at this moment of, and yet then when you said something about the raven has something to do with the starlight, I thought, yeah, again, these stages that we move through, it's not like we move through them and then we hit the delete button and we put them into the rubbish bin.
Yeah.
But we carry them with us, but they also go through a different shift. So there is something of raven in her,
Yes.
carrying her, going with her, but she is now fox. And yeah, so that's just the integration of every stage. We don't lose it once we go through it. But
That's
the
right.
thing that carried us through it is now also going to kind of metamorphosize as we go, as we continue.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean the Zen Buddhists say that you're every age you've ever been and every age you will ever be all the time, which is a dizzying thought, but I'll just say that because it fits with what you're saying. Like, it's such a beautiful idea. You're every age you've ever been and every age you will ever be. I love that that carrying the raven skin forward and was trying to put it on again. I actually haven't thought about that before, because it's always resonated for me as like, trying different things on, trying to be something you aren't necessarily. You can't get what you don't got, Appa, my Indian yoga teacher, used to say, so you need to just refine the giftings you have. So I've been like very hung up in that piece of it. And that's a really beautiful interpretation and way to see it. I love that. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, let's just take like a 5-minute bathroom break, and we're going to do a very gentle movement practice. So I'm going to get the camera ready for my mat. So if you see me walking around, it's just because I need to change the camera angle and stuff for the practice. If you don't want to practice and you want to dip out, that's perfectly fine. It's a very gentle class for the kidneys and for tapping into that like sentience and chi energy. So we won't even stand too much. We'll do a few rounds of some Katona moon salutations probably, but that will be like as active as it gets. It'll be pretty gentle because kidneys, I told you we are building chi, not depleting it. So like a hot power vinyasa class right now would be chi depleting. So, okay, 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I told you I was done saying things, and I mostly am, but I'm going to weave it into Chinese medicine just a little bit for you before we continue. Um, one thing I want to say too about the story that we were just in is, somewhere along the way, and I have this theory that it's the only way it can be, we lose the golden ball. Like we lose ourselves. And I used to think that was like a sad thing, but I actually think it is part and parcel and the journey of a human life. Like whenever I tell the story of the Frog Prince, or some other stories that are similar to this, I think the reason there are literally thousands of fairy tales about losing ourselves is because you have to. It's just like the fundamental human journey of that. You get caught up in the overculture or whatever it is. You have this sense of loss that starts around adolescence. You continue to this, you start this pathway to like reclaiming your skin, becoming more dimensional. Chinese medicine says you're moving through the 5 elements. They're rotating on their own, cycling, pushing you through from water when you're a baby into the springs rising of wood energy and that vibrancy into the fire of your 30s and 40s into earth element metal, and then like to death, that refinement period. But there's this period where we have to lose something. We become separated from our true nature, and what would really nourish us and also allow us to be in service. And that part of ourself that we become divorced from, that kind of great divorce that happens, um, often comes knocking at midlife, that wild twin that beats of us. And what's being asked of us is, I'm yelling because the computer's so far away. And I just realized I'm wearing a microphone, so I don't need to talk louder because you guys are so far away from me. I'm sorry if the volume just got really loud. That's such an old people move that I'm shouting at the computer because I'm farther away. It's like my grandma on the phone thinking she needs to talk loud because I'm in another country. Pardon if I was just shouting at you guys. I just had this revelation that I was like, okay, the computer's far away and you can't see it, but they can still hear you because you're wearing a microphone. Hilarious. Um, but it often comes knocking at midlife. And what's being asked of us is to stop carrying the fox pelt around and to integrate it, as Michelle said. Like to become, I love that detail that I haven't told it this way before actually until today, of the skin reaching back for her and that intimacy and mutual caress of the skin. That's the first time I've told the story that way, but that's how I was imagining it today. And I think it was a beautiful detail and something to sit with. So we're being asked to not play with the wild, but to integrate it wholly and to follow our fox nose and trust that even though we can't rehearse the unknown, that what we're stepping into is something of value. In Chinese medicine, pardon, I just have some notes on my phone. Um, One of the reasons that our qi gets depleted is that our youthful dreams end up, maybe coming to nothing. Things that we had planned on, disappointments come, right? We end up in the giant's tent And I didn't even start to touch the giant with you, but I'll just tell you that there's hot and cold giants in fairy tales. And you can probably already imagine what a fiery giant is if you think about fairy tales. They have no control of their emotions, they're ragers, they're like, and an ice giant is a very cold being. And they, in fairy tales, they're always about our emotional lives. Um, but, when our dreams have been continually dashed down and we lose hope, often what happens is that our kidney energy is drained. And there's a really interesting metaphor for this in Chinese medicine because it was common for emperors back then to have concubines and harems of like intelligent, beautiful women. And when the emperor would die, they would send them to the Buddhist monastery against their will, and their hair would be cut off because your hair is the ultimate symbol of your kidney energy and your vitality and your individuality. And this is a hopeful choice if you're intentionally pursuing the Buddhist path, right? And you're shedding off your previous raven skins or whatever. But when you are forced into it, it's a different thing. And in a way, in all of these changeling stories of women and men, changeling men and women, they are experiencing when they're trapped in their human skin this similar idea of like the hair being shorn off and shoved into the monastery. And what happens when we're in that metaphoric place of shoved into the monastery, shoved into the hut? What do you hear people say? They say things like, well, that's just the way life is. Well, I'm just doing my duty, right? Do you know what I mean? Like these are the kinds of things that we start to say out of our own kind of embittered, disappointed, broken hearts. And those are when we start to fear the loss and the failure, become bitter, and then scoff at other people's dreams. We've all met older people like this, right? And this has been me at points in my life, if I'm honest, and I must be because I'm teaching, right? We start scoffing at other people's stuff out of our own loss and failure and fear. And what's invited again is, again in the story, there's this seasonality. The winter, the metal energy comes, and then she goes into the winter. And what they call this in Chinese medicine is total surrender to the void. Total surrender to the void. That's what they call this period. That's what the Chinese phrase translates to when you sort of are forced into the monastery or the killing energy has come and you're in winter and you don't know where to step next. And rather than hanging on to the past and grieving what was and holding on to past things, the death cord is cut and you're not clinging to what was irretrievably destroyed, her old life, her old home, and it's time to focus on your own roots. In winter, all of the nourishment from the plants is pulled underground to nourish the roots for what? The next spring's rising, the real you. So the hard path in Chinese medicine, in Katona yoga, you've heard us say a lot, the long road through time. It's the journey from number 7 to number 8 in the magic square. It's this journey of death to regeneration. And they actually call people that manage this movement from the number 7 to 8, back to the infinite cycle of things, back to the rebirth of things, that survive the winter and nourish the roots. The phrase they call them is those who have understood the void. Isn't that great? The people who manage to come out of the death cycle, up from Baba Yaga's hut, Persephone rising in spring, those who have understood the void. And what they say that you actually really need then is this strong kidney energy, the essence, to be able to move through difficult transitions and to be regenerated. Everything moves in cycles of 12, and the number 13 is the liminal in between before the next birth. It's the Crohn's number because she knows when to cut the death cord, to tend to her roots, and then to move into the new season. It's the death mother number. So kidney energy is knowing how to die and be reborn, how to be a person who understands the void. And that's really what our fox woman did also, right? So that's the dialogue that we're sort of playing with these kidney practices. So I know I said I wasn't going to say anything else, but we were on the break and I was like, I didn't tell them about the number 13 or the kidneys or one who understands the void. So it felt important. So with that, now let's come to all fours. And I have yoga blankets, but a household towel will work. If you have yoga blocks, fine. If you don't, War and Peace makes a good yoga block, or you can leave them behind. But I always like to have something to sit on, and a folded towel works perfectly fine. Come to all fours and plant your hands underneath of your shoulders and your knees underneath of your hips so that you have really good contact with the palms of the hands to the earth and the spread of the feet to the mat, so you have angles everywhere. And then wrap your armpits forward by bending your elbows out to the side and then taking the eye of the elbow forward, so you're opening up your collarbones east and west, left and right. The collarbones are like windows. So in TCM and in Katona Yoga, we say the body is a house with 3 floors. So you have your ground of being, your ground of doing, and your ground of seeing. And the structures inform the organs. So when we open the collarbones, what we're really opening is a lung. And then spread the tops of your feet. Good. And let's start with just a very gentle sort of cat-cow movement, rounding the spine and then arching the back. And you can do this on your own and at your own pace, and it doesn't need to be so orderly. You can make some circles around yourself, circling around the knees and past the wrists. You can spin your tailbone a little bit. Let it be very watery and intuitive. Kidney energy is ground of being stuff. It's lunar, it's unconscious, it's ancestral, it's deeply personal and precious. Moon is remembrance of the cycles of consciousness and forgetting. We're very quick to forget. Waking up is a whole nother thing. It's a whole body of stories about those two. Good. And then pause in the center of yourself. And we want to generate a little bit of heat in the body so that everything's a little more malleable. So we're going to tuck the tail and pop it open and start to pump the breath with a little bit of speed through your nose. If this is new to you, it's a Bastrika's breath or a bellows breath. So it's a forceful inhale and a forceful exhale. It sounds like this. Good. Keep going. In, out, in, out. If this is new to you, protect your neck, but the movement is coming from the tailbone. You can even isolate it more towards the lower body, and it's very grounded in the spread of the feet. In, out, in, out. And it's like you're going down into the low body, which is like the basement of the house, to light the pilot light and stoke a personal fire. The first fire of the body in Chinese medicine is the fire of your desire. Keep going, just about 30 more seconds, generating some good heat. And then pause in the center of yourself and just pause. The world might be spinning a little bit. Take your left knee to the center of your mat and cross the right knee in front of the left. And if that's too difficult to go from the front, you can always go from the back. But get the right knee in front of the left. So in this dialogue, I want you to envision that there's a golden thread that's going through the crown of your head and then out your tailbone. And the lower part of the thread, this is the ground of being, and it's what we call your third foot. So it's the integration point between the genetics of your mother and the genetics of your father. It's your personal imprint on this planet. And now I want you to go around yourself and make some big swirl of your hips. And I'm starting by moving my whole body, not just spinning my tailbone. You can play there too. I'm even letting my right knee lift up. We're going to do some juicy hip work today. And the spread of the feet will anchor you. Can change directions. This is always where I adjust my own pelvis. It already just popped right before I said that. It's always where I get my sacral adjustment. Left knee is plugging into the back of the right knee, so we're integrating the lunar and the solar, which is the unconscious and the conscious developed scholastic self, the emotive and the feeling and the thinking, the virility of the right foot, putting your best foot forward, and the embodiment and nurturing instinct of the left foot. Legs are like the roots of the kidneys. Good. And then pause in the center and isolate the movement now to the tailbone. So it's like you were trying to draw a circle with your tailbone behind yourself. Spin around a clock and put some breath through it. That looks super nice, you guys. Good. And change directions. Spin it the other way. So nice. Really good. And then pause in the center of yourself. And we're going to take a cross-legged down dog. I started our fall class in exactly the same way. Keep your legs crossed. Get your little baby toes in one line. Bend your knees and take your bum up into the air. That's it. Super nice. Pretty, Tiffany. Nice. That's it, Michelle. Find a wave in your spine by really sending your pelvic floor up and back. Knees are bent, so there's buoyancy. Couple big breaths. Good. Nice. Walk your hands back to your feet. And your right heel is going to lift up as you bend your left knee into your right heel. It's very bouncy and it should feel very stable in the legs. Like I don't actually need my hands here. And now bring your right fingertips under your right shoulder and start to rotate around yourself to the left. So left hand can come to your sacrum. I could care less if your pelvis stays in one line. Our hips are meant to move. Our hips are part of what turns us. It's a very old, very outdated idea that the hips shouldn't move when you twist. Let the hips come with you. Stack the left shoulder over the right. Find a back bend so your tail is moving backward and your crown of your head and sternum is going forward, and turn yourself. And if you want to look up, look out first to release the neck and then up so you can see all the way around yourself. That's it. So good. Swim your left arm forward. Trace it with your gaze. Go as far as you can with your eyes to return the left hand to the floor, and then maybe play with starting to straighten the legs a little bit. And then walk your hands back forward. Lower back down onto the knees, and then do a little shift forward and back like you were trying to touch your bum to the ground. We did this a few weeks ago. It's often a way I will open up a practice at home if I'm working in the hips. Sometimes I intentionally teach some of the same things week after week because I want you to have tools that you know how to implement when you're alone. Good. Nice. Right knee can even lift up as you stretch back. That's it. Very nice. Come all the way back forward and very unceremoniously uncross the legs. Good. We're going to get into the wrists a little bit before we do the other side. Flip your right wrist all the way around and then flip your left wrist all the way around. If this is new to you, it's uncomfortable, it's not dangerous. It's very healing for the neck. Your wrists are connected to your neck. It helps us to open up the collarbones. So lift off the center of the palm, widen east and west, left and right. Good, nice. And then build a little heat again. In, out, in, out. Pump the breath and put a wave through the spine. So you're playing the fire and the water. When we're spinning and down in the lower body in that way, we're playing our waters. Here we're playing building some heat and moving heat through the form. Good. Count yourself down 10 breaths. Those look super good. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So so nice. When you finish, pause in the center. Stretch your seat back, opening up back of the wrists. And then come back forward. Try not to do anything to your hands, but turn them forward. The sensation will dissipate quickly, I promise. Take your right knee to the center and cross the left knee in front. And let's repeat everything we just did. So move now the whole body around in circles to the left. Again, the left is the lunar side of us. It's the emotive. And we want to be in good relationship to the lunar, but if we're too much in our feelings, it's called lunacy. If we're too much in the scholastic self, we lose the symbolic self, the mythic self, the archetypal self. We forget how to dream. We can't connect. So we want to learn to mind the middle. That's the golden thread, the great Tai Chi, the Sutra Atman, the Axis Mundi in Kabbalah. Big circles around yourself. And change directions when it feels intuitive. While often a yoga practice, especially a Katona practice, is very formal, when we're playing in the realm of kidney, we also need to lean into the feeling. Good, and then find the middle again and spin just the tailbone. Drawing a circle around yourself, activating energy of the pelvis, kidney band, low body, the spread of the feet like an umbilical cord to the heavenly host that is this blue-green planet. Moving breath through the form. A good sigh now and again is useful. Really nice. Pause in the center. Curl your toes under and send your seat up and back. And you might need to adjust the feet to bring the little baby toes in one line. Now the right knee is plugging into the back of the left knee. The spine is nice and long. Big breath. Really nice. Walk your hands to your feet. Left heel is going to rise as the right heel descends, and you bend your right knee into your left knee. And then right hand to your sacrum. Start by finding a back bend. Send your tailbone back and your sternum forward. Come up on your fingertips. Look out. And then out of that length, start to spin to the right and maybe take your right arm up. A little more weight into the right foot to spin you. And to take the gaze up, look out first and then around so that you can free up the C1 vertebrae. Top of the neck. So good. When we bring the hand down, look at your hand and trace it with your gaze forward, 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 forward until the fingertips come down, and then maybe play for a moment in what it's like to start to straighten your legs. Left leg obviously won't straighten all the way. And then walk your hands back forward, back onto the knees, and shift the seat forward and back. You can even let your left knee come up, going back into the hips. That's right. I'm going to do just a couple standy poses, moon salutations, and then come down and do some deeper hip work. Just a little moment of fire, lunar fire. Good. Come back to the center. Again, sort of unceremoniously undo the legs, curl your toes under, and sit back on your heels for a moment. If this is excruciating, you can, that's actually worse, don't do that. You can put a blanket back there. The block will make it more intense, or you can put a block under your knees, which will take some pressure off of the toes. If you want more pressure on your toes, you can put it underneath of your seat. And then just to sort of distract you from the sensations in your feet, take your arms up, interlace your fingers, flip your palms to the sky. Try to get even your index fingers reaching up and maybe just do a little swirl around yourself. Focus on the breath, stretch the toes. Carve out a little space for yourself. A little piece of your awareness in the back body where we have less nerves. It's like the dark side of the moon. We're very aware of the potential in the front of ourselves. Backside's a bit of a mystery. So see if you can tune into that sensorial place. And then take your hands down. Give me one more big full breath. And then shift back forward and give your feet a little tap on the mat. Change up the sensation. Good. And we're going to move through some Katona moon salutations. So you're going to shift your seat back and take your hands back like you were a little tiny seedling in winter. When we have put ourselves into the dark forest, into the hut, what's being asked of us when we create that severance, when we leave behind what once was, is to shed the shriveled parts of the branches and to plant seeds, become the little seedling of potential. And then for one, we sit back on our heels and take our arms up alongside of our ears like a little sprout, a little dawning of an idea. And then come down and tap the earth again so you're reconnected. And now 3 is a wave, and you can pull forward through a cobra. I like to glide forward, curl my toes under into an up dog, but it's a wave. The Trinity, something's happening, come through yourself. And then 4, take it back to shore, back to a downward facing dog. 4 is a frame. It's a walled in garden, definition of paradise. It's a boundary. And now step your right foot between your hands for 5. 5 is the crossroads of consciousness. So sweep your arms up and be the little crescent moon rising. 5 is you. It's everything passing through your experience. 6, we're going to bring our fingertips to the floor and step forward. 6 is a risk. So step forward and fold in on yourself. It's reproductive. 7 is a number of completion, 7 notes in the major scale, 7 colors in a rainbow. It's the number of God in Judaism. So take a big breath and rise. Full moon rising. Number 7, full illumination, consciousness rising. 8, we have to do it all again. It's the infinity. Fold back down over yourself. It's the embodiment. Step your right foot back into the lunge again. 9 is the stellar of the stellar. It's 3 times 3, Trinity times the Trinity. It's the light descending. So come up into your low lunge, send your pubis forward, and embody the crescent moon. And then bring your hands back down. 10 is a down dog. It's the resistance, resisting the pull of the unconscious, framing it up again. 10 is the whole thing. 11, we come through ourselves again, back out into a wave. 12 is the ending. It's the death of things. Come back into the little seedling. And 12 is also 13. So pause in the little liminal space again. The death doesn't always mean an ending permanently, but it is a shift in energy. And so again, when we have the kidney force, the willpower, the gumption, the drive, the right support, the willingness, we take a step forward. So again, sit back on your heels for 1 and rise. Like a little seed pushing through the earth, gather up your wood energy. 2, touch the earth. 3, we come through ourselves. It's the first Trinity. It's a triangle. It's the flower on the stem. And then 4, frame it up, find the boundary. This time, left foot will travel forward and you'll drop to your right knee and come up for 5. Again, 5 is the crossroads of consciousness. Everything passes through it. It's your up, your down, your winter, your spring, your effort, your grace. And then for 6, we step forward and put our best foot forward. Take a risk. 7 is the product of your efforts. So big rise, full moon rising around yourself, illumination, putting the stars in the sky. And 8, it's that long, hard road through time. Fold over yourself. The willingness to travel. Left foot steps back for 9. Again, 9 is always the center of our achievement, the stellar of the stellar. Your big vision come to life. And 10 is a sphere, it's the whole thing. Put your hands down and step back to down dog. 11, things are starting to descend. Come forward into the up dog. And 12 is the completion. It's also the number of governance. Drop to your knees and come back again. Little seedling of potential back into the liminal space of 13. We're going to do both sides one more time. We should probably do them 2 more times to do things in 3s, since that's the number of the fairies. So we will. Sit back on your heels. 1, a little sprout. 2, bow and touch the earth. Let's pull in the dialogue of the ocean, be pulled forward by the unconscious, by your heart. 4, resist, put a little scholastic nature in it. 5, lunge the right foot forward and rise into your crescent moon. 6, step forward, waves crashing on the shore. 7, let's give a little clap at the top, like a big clap of massive big waves. Rise up and make some noise over the top of your head. And 8, fold back down again, the tide going out. Step the right foot back. Again, be a big wave rising. 10, resist the pull of the unconscious and step back to shore. 11, be pulled out to sea again, be a wave. So nice, beautiful. And then 12, sea gets calm, like glass, and just pause. One is the singularity, sit back. 2 is a polarity, this, not that, up, not down. 3 is a dialogue, it's the mediation point. Again, 4 is a frame. Left foot comes forward for 5 and rise, crossroads. Good. 6 is a risk, 6 is sex. Best foot forward, hold over yourself. 7 again is the product of your effort, rise up overhead. 8 is the infinite. There's always more laundry to do, always a new mess to clean up. Left foot back for 9. Center of your achievement, your bird's eye vision, your manifestation. And 10 is the whole thing. Good. 11 is a wave. And 12 is the little seed. We're not going to go again in the interest of time. Just pause in your little seedling of potential and breaking the rule of fairy. We're doing two sets. Feel the wave of your own breath. If you want to support your head on 2 fists, you can, or forehead on the mat. Maybe sigh a couple times, feeling your own tidal breath. Really good. And then nice and easy, rise up and swing your feet around out in front of you. I'm going to move into a little bit of hip work, anchoring into the ground of being, into the kidney band. So I'm going to set up on top of actually 2 blocks of blankets, 1 or 2 towels or blankets, put something under you. I am sitting up on stuff for a different reason than some of you might be. I'm super hypermobile, and so I like to use a lot of props That might be you, or you might need the support because there's less flexibility. Both reasons are valid. Take your right shin in front of you. I'll face you. And then stack your left shin on top. I'm actually going to mirror you. That might be easier for you. So left shin is on top. If this is terrible for you and you're like, my hips don't do that, you can just cross your left leg in front of your, pardon me, right leg in front of your left. Maybe I won't mirror you. I'm just messing it up. It's hard to mirror people on camera. In real life, it's easier. On camera, everyone's facing a different direction. So some leg is on top. That's the point. We'll be doing both sides. Good. And find your perineum. So perineum is the place between the anus and the sex organs. You might need to wiggle around a little bit to get in there. You can also support a knee with a prop if that's better. If you have the shin on top, look down between your legs and there should be an equilateral triangle in the center, meaning that you really have the ankle truly on the knee and your knee is stacked on top of your opposite angle. Very good. Nice. Those look great. Beautiful. Really good. Take your arms up and grab opposite palm to opposite elbow. Take a nice breath in and then hinge from your hip crease. You don't have to come all the way down, but come part way down and then ride the breath and unfold it back up from your hip. If I was in the room with you, I would probably be standing on some of your hips or putting sandbags on your legs so that you could really feel how this is coming from the torso and from the fold of the hip, not from your back. So the action, I'll turn to the side for a moment. You guys look great, but the action is coming from here. Just like when you do a deadlift at the gym, right? So there's no strain on the back. It's all from the hip crease. It's light, and the torso is light by the virtue of the heaviness and the groundedness in the legs. Good. A couple more. And then make it more interesting and start to take what we call around the world. So a big swooping, I don't care what the pace is, a back bend at the top, big circles around yourself. Making yourself into a hemisphere, a giant sphere. You can change directions when you're ready. Up and around yourself. So good. Nice. One more big circle around. Good. And then pause it up at the top, sit up super tall. And I want you to imagine that you're opening and closing a window. We're going to take that same Bhastrika's breath through the nose. In, out, in, out. In, out, in, out. Pump the breath through the nose, in, out, like a bellow, like you were stoking a fire, moving some of the heat from the lower body up. 10, 9, count your breath down so you're in your integrity, weaving a narrative that's all your own. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it at the top. Take a deep breath in. 3 more sips through your mouth. 1 more sniff. Hold your breath super full. And now as you exhale, I want you to take your hand to the back of your head and then opposite left hand to left heel or right hand to right heel. I think some of us are doing a different side. It's fine. And then bring your fingertips back behind you and spin around yourself. Really nice. That's it. The contact between either the knee and the palm of the hand or the heel and the palm of the hand is like a ball and a mitt. Everywhere in the body you have balls and mitts, and balls throw and mitts catch. So throw the ball of the knee or the heel into the palm of the hand. Spiral your collarbones open by virtue of moving the armpits towards your heart. And if you want more range in your neck, look down at your front shoulder first. Go out, up, and around with the head. And you will find your left eye can see much farther behind you. Good. One more big full breath. Very good. Take your right arm up alongside of your ear to swim yourself forward. Cross your arms and then just let that go. Good. Take your legs out in front of you and shake them out. And then switch the cross of the legs, or which leg is on top. My right leg is on top now because I got myself all confused while I was trying to mirror some of you. And I can't see you because you're so far away, your little tiny bodies. I can just see, like, you look like little yoga stick people to me. I'm like, that looks good. Good. Nice. So same thing again, find the perineum, because when you're really on your perineum, and it'll feel like you're slightly pitched forward, but it's going to stack the rib cage over the pelvis, which is going to free your breathing and free your antenna, your big vision. Good. Take your arms up and take the opposite palm to opposite elbow the non-habitual way. So go the way you normally go and then change it. Yeah, because a yoga practice is about moving out of our habituation. When we do, embodiment practices like somatic dance or somatic movement, we're feeling in and feeling out. The yoga practice is an embodying practice. So it's, what am I calling in? What am I putting into the form more intentionally? It's a difference, right? So here, put yourself on a spit, open up all 3 floors of your house, and then start to go up and down. And you don't have to go all the way down. Go to a place where you can send your tail back behind you and guide with your sternum, and the torso feels light, the back is flat. Up and down. Couple more. So good. And then when you've had enough of playing in the up and down and the forward and back, make it a sphere and go around yourself and stir something up. And feel the freedom that we can access in the torso when the legs and the stability of the kidneys is there. Good. Do a couple more. Those look really nice. Good. Nice big movement. Beautiful. Nice. So good, Tiffany. That's it. The next time you're up, stay up, and we'll pump out the breath again. When you're ready, in, out, in, out. We're taking some of the heat from the lower body and flushing it through the upper levels of the house so that it doesn't get trapped in the basement or in the heart where we become sharp-tongued or stuff gets too hot. And by virtue of taking the frame up alongside of our ears, we're bringing the lungs forward and bringing the heart forward and making ourselves available. 10 more breaths. Pause at the top next time you're up. Take a deep breath in. 3 more sips. 1 more sniff. Hold the breath. And exhale and let it go. Good. Take your hand to your heel once again and start to move into the rotation. And the contact between either your hand and your knee, it's the same thing, or the hand and the heel is going to spin you. So play sort of moving in and out of that. It's fine to let this opposite hip come with you, to move you into the rotation. And then when you want to get more freedom in the head, look down at your front shoulder, look forward, like jut your chin out, look up at the sky to slowly roll the head back, and you will find that it frees the upper neck so that you can really see all the way around yourself. Nice. Take 3 full breaths. Very good. Use your in breath of your third breath when you're finished to bring yourself back around and uncross the legs again. I'm going to get rid of one of my blankets, but you can sit on one or two still, extend the legs. If you wish, and you have hardwood floors, if you have, or tile floors, but if you have carpet, this won't work, but so you can stay where you are. But if you have slippery floors, you can fold up your mat, and it's an interesting way to get into the forward fold. You can sit on the blanket like so. So if you're on your mat because you don't have slippery floors, extend your legs, bend your knees a little bit to pull yourself forward to change the angle of the pelvis so you're right up on top of your perineum, and that's the position we're going to fold from. If you have slippery floors, wiggle down, get your knees in your armpits, wiggle onto your buttock bones, grab a hold of your heels, and start to slide your bum back. And then pull yourself back forward again, and do that a couple times to ease yourself into the fold. If you don't have slippery floors, just fold forward and grab the heels. So a couple places to play. The slidey floor version feels real good. You can try it later in your kitchen if you can't try it now. And sink yourself down into a forward fold. You can put blocks under your head. You can put blocks at the ends of your feet. Fold over yourself. Draw the heads of the arm bones slightly back and think about creating more length in the front of the spine. You have props, you can prop yourself up, giving yourself a point of contact at the soles of the feet. And then make it really imaginative by imaging that you are pulling yin energy, water, nourishment of the breath up through the roots of the legs to the kidneys, and backs of the legs. And then as you exhale, let what isn't yours anymore, what is toxic to you, wash up the back and out with the breath, with the exhale. Putting yourself in a little cocoon of your own breath, like a snail in its shell. And I'm going to be quiet. Turn your hearing to your breathing. So it's like putting your ear to a seashell, and it's the oceanic tide of your own breath that soothes the kidney. Really nice. Take 3 more breaths. Really be intentional. And when you have finished, rather than backing out of the pose, go forward, leading with the sternum like you were reaching for the light to sit up. Go slow. Really nice. We are in a strange way going to finish standing with a little movement from Tai Chi to just nourish the kidneys. So in a mindful way, you'll come to stand. It's not often you would end a yoga class standing, but we're going to. I'll probably sit you back down for a moment. That being said, shake things out for a moment. Good. And then this is a very, very simple movement. You're going to take your hands out in front of you. And when you are exhaling, you're going to bend your knees like you were pushing, if you're going to Star Wars it, push the force away from you. And as you breathe in, you're going to gather up the energy, pull it towards you like your hands were on your shoulders, and get very tall and pull in that yang energy of the in-breath. And then exhale and bend the knees. Good. So do this on your own. Go really slow. You can close your eyes if you wish and feel into the movement. And more subtle than the movement, feel the pulsation of the breath. And maybe so subtle that you can feel the energy around the hands, the body, and that push-pull with the breath. Every time you breathe in, getting so tall, pulling in that chi. One more of those. Good. Next time you are up, take your arms out to the side and pause for a moment. And now lower your arms, but let your fingers touch your outer thighs. It'll more than likely just be the two middle fingers. Light touch. And just feel for a moment. Good. Now breathe in and float your arms back up to where they were in that T shape. And flip your palms towards the sky. And in Tai Chi, we say you're gathering up the sky energy, the yang energy. Sweep your arms up, pull up. Palms are going to face down now. I want you to push that energy, that down into your own belly. Drag the hands in front of your face nice and slow. And stop when the hands are just below the rib cage. Yeah, first time might have been a little funny. We'll get it now. Feel that sort of like there's a ball of energy in the belly. They say this is the chi center, and then the kidneys are the storehouse. So flip the palms now, gather up the energy. Go slow, breathe in. Big circle around yourself, up overhead. And then nice and gentle as you exhale, draw that earth energy, sky energy down into the belly, the chi center. Do that a couple more times on your own. It's okay if something gets a little funky. Feel into the movement. And on a more subtle level, into you moving your own energy, earth energy, yin energy, nourishing yourself. Good. Let's do one more. And this time, keep the hands at the belly when you finish this breath. And this is a little funny. It's a Tai Chi movement where now, a Qigong movement, excuse me, you're gonna, almost like you had a big pregnant belly, but it's an energy belly. Take your hands like a sphere, like you were doing sort of prenatal photos around your belly. Might be a weird way to explain it, but, and a few of those, sensing this ball of vitality at the belly. 3 times, 3 or 4. See if you can sense your own energy field. And then when you finish, again, just fingertips again on the outer thighs and just feel the body. And the breath. Whatever kind of animal skin is your own, your wolfy, foxy, raven, salmon skin. As much downward energy, minimal. You'll have to open your eyes more than likely to sit down for a moment, but try to keep the energy as internalized as you can and just sit for just a moment. You can sit up on something and just close your eyes once you're comfy and land for just a moment. You can drop your chin slightly towards your heart. In the old tantric dialogues, they say that when you drop the chin, It forces the energy to stay in the heart so we don't feed the wily part of our intellect. My teacher used to tell me anytime I was angry in a conversation to drop my chin before I speak, to put my head back in my heart. So a little lowering of the chin to connect with the heart space. The white and the black and the red, the severance and the threshold, the initiation and the return. The loneliness that comes when we have to forge a path that is our own. But Martin always says that a little lonesomeness is the price of deepening. And all the times we have to try on the raven cloak and the snake skin in order to find our true skin. These things aren't always comfortable, but they allow us to move into being human beings that are as dimensional as possible, which is what Chinese medicine says the goal is, that we would shine like diamonds, fulfilling our personal Ming, that we would be intimate with all 5 of the elements and the ways that we can move between earth and fire and water and know when to pull which one out, to become elders and ancestors that know how to carry our limp. You can either bring your palms flat to your heart, or if you want to be more traditional, the Anjali Mudra, hands in prayer hands, or just hands somewhere on your body. And take a moment just to bow your chin and give some gratitude for your body and your breath, and for community and all of the stories, personal stories and ancestral stories that hold us. And then when you're ready, rub your palms together in front of your face, build some really good heat and friction between the palms of your hands. And when they're nice and hot, cup your palms over your eyes with your fingertips on your hairline. Soften the eyeball in the socket and let your tongue kind of fall to the bottom of the mouth like a clam sleeping in its shell. So everything is very soft. And when you're ready, open your eyes behind your hands, letting in that fertile darkness. And when you're ready, release your palms and let in the light and welcome yourself back. Switch it to that one. Thank you so much for coming and spending part of your Sunday with me. I will send the recording out and then it'll live on my Substack. Just quickly, if you are interested in more of this work, I have a year-long program starting called Dangerous Women, and it's this stuff, but also somatics and coaching and guest speakers. Erica Mather, who authored My Body, My Best Friend, is speaking and hanging with us. And my friend Simone Tucker, who is the queen of the pleasure party in London, she's amazing, is coming. And we'll be doing subconscious reprogramming work, so self-hypnosis work for dreaming and owning our desires, and lots of story. We'll be working with Amora and Psyche and Persephone and some other really big stories, and then lots of changeling women stories. So there's pricing for different tiers if you're in financial strain, but I would love to have you. And otherwise, you know, we do these monthly sessions, and I do one of these with story every month for my Substack paid subscribers. So I have to shamelessly plug my stuff at the end, you know. You can tell I'm super comfortable with it, but I have to. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all very much. And do you have any questions before I sign off? I'm not in a rush, so if you have anything you want to say or questions for me, I can answer.
Just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. Michelle, it was really nice to see you. You're in England. Are you? Oh, she's gone. Oh no, you're right there. You guys moved on the screen. Are you coming next month to
Not
the
sure.
manor?
Not
Huh?
sure. I'm
Not
not
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be there. I'm just saying if you are so inclined.
Okay. I'm in Oxford, so it's
It's a bit of a drive. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Selena,
Yes, darling.
would you mind repeating at the end you were saying something about you were speaking about loneliness
Yeah.
and I like quickly
Yeah.
picked up my phone to make a note of it. I
I
wrote the
can
loneliness of
absolutely tell you
foraging.
because it's very memorized because Martin has said it to me for years. The lonesomeness is the price of deepening. Sometimes a little lonesomeness. He says lonesomeness because he's English, so a little loneliness is the
You
price.
said something about the loneliness of foraging our own path alone. It was that.
Yeah, so I said something off the top of, well, it was
It
off
was,
the
of
top
course
of
it
my
was.
head. I know
You're
this
so
is always the
brilliant.
problem. People are like, what did you just say? And I'm like, I have no idea. I do
I
know I
appreciate
quoted
it.
Martin, which, because that's a Martin quote, but before that, I said that you have to forge your own path. You know, if it wasn't your, if I'll say it a different way. If the path is already there, it's not yours. Do you know what I mean? Like if the path is already all clearly laid out and it's there, it's someone else's. We have to forge our own path. And that is a very lonely thing. It's a lonely thing to flee what we knew, to leave the village, to leave the settlement, and to go running out across the tundra for a period. And it doesn't mean we don't get to come back, you know, and all these other stories like the halfling girl and different things, they come back to the village in a different way. In this story, she comes back with the offering of starlight. But it doesn't mean that that you don't get to return to the village or whatever, but it is a lonely path, and we have to welcome that in its own way. It's not easy to deepen. It's not an easy thing to carve our own path. And you know, people always talk about, oh, you're staying in your comfort zone. The comfort zone can be an incredibly painful place. You know, the familiar can be very painful, but it doesn't mean it's not familiar. And you know, there is, you know, Martin always jokingly tells people that they shouldn't consider going on wilderness vigil if they're happy with their life. And I say a similar thing about certain programs that I offer. I'm like, you probably shouldn't, like Dangerous Women, you shouldn't come if you're really, really satisfied with how everything is and you don't want to change anything. And I mean that really seriously. I have had women leave some of these programs and like quit their job, move to a different country, get divorced, get pregnant, get like really big stuff. And it's when we choose to like deepen and to put our wolf skin, our seal skin, or whatever back on, it's going to shake stuff up. And there's going to be moments of it that it's really difficult. And I'm not advocating for chaos as a lifestyle. I want to be really clear, or telling you you should burn everything down every time you have a question. It's dead. You know, sometimes the death is just a death within a cycle. Anyone who's been married for a long time, some of you have been, can say how many deaths have been in your marriage. Michelle's nodding, like she's been married a long time. The death doesn't mean it's an ending. I said that in the class. It's the end of one part of it. It might be a real ending. You know, it might be a complete and full ending of a job or a vocation or a relationship. But often the beauty of it, there was this Jewish rabbi that I used to, I don't know, he's just stopped writing. So when I say I used to read his writing, it's because he stopped publicly writing. But he used to say that when you're married, you'll be marrying 10,000 men or 10,000 women because it's all the iterations through life. It's the same thing with your vocation or your artistry, right? Or your writing or everything. If you're not willing to see, that's the hard road through time we talk about in Katona Yoga, the number and the magic square, which is a Chinese medicine map that we use for the body. For those of you that don't know, it's just something we made up and we all agree on the meaning, and we use numbers from geometry and esoteric dialogue, and it's just fun and it gives us a way to play our imagination. But the hard long road through time is journeying from 7 to 8. 7, the product. You took a step out into the world, you made something, you had a product. That journey then between 7, 8, and 9, the center of your achievement, the stellar of the stellar, the third, the Trinity times the Trinity, getting to that is the long road through time. 8 is the embodiment, the infinite. You heard me say laundry in the middle of the class. I was like, you got to do the laundry again. It's never done. The laundry's never finished. And that willpower, that yin kidney energy to take you to the end of it is necessary, that to be able to sustain the deepening and to get there with a limp that you carry well, that is not bitterness. Those of you who know my story, which most people do because it's very public, about the major losses that I've experienced, violent, scary losses, right? Like I could be the most bitter person, but the antidote to bitterness is tenderness. And so if you let life tenderize you, instead of turning towards the why me and all of that, and keep the vision on being willing to step out of that familiarity and to keep carving the path, there's a grace. And part of that is learning to not take things so personally. Like great nature is not personally invested in you. It is beautiful and it has given you so many gifts. It will also squish you like a bug, like you can't take it personally. It's very violent. It's a hard thing for us to swallow. We get a little glimpse of it in a National Geographic documentary, but it's why people are so uncomfortable with the Great Mother, because New Age people like to talk about the Great Mother and what they're always only talking about, like the woo-woo part of like Mother Earth, it's soft and she's so nurturing, ignoring the half of her where she will have a lion rip your face off, right? Because that's also Great Mother. Do you know what I mean? We're very uncomfortable with Great Mother energy, which is why Kali and Baba Yaga and all these things get relegated to hag in a negative way. She gets a wart on her nose because it's very scary energy for women too, because it's not gendered. Great Mother it's outside of anything we know, and that realm is where you're messing when you are making your own journey. And in the old Baba Yaga stories, anyone who knows all the Baba Yaga stories, she always asks people like, did you know me? And did you come here on your own or were you forced here? And I'll tell you what, whichever thing you answer to she's a Russian mother of death and life, and she lives in a house that's always turning, that's on one chicken leg, and she flies around in a mortar and pestle sweeping her way up from behind, and her nose is as long as she's a wild one. She's got 10 spikes around her house made of human bones, and there's an 11th one that is conspicuously empty because the other 10 have men's heads on them. The 11th one might be for you if you answer her question wrong, which you probably will. So she always asks people, did you come to me willingly or were you sent here? Guess what? Either one gets you your head on the pike. Either answer. I came willingly, head on the pike. I was forced here, head on the pike. She doesn't accept banal answers, the Great Mother. So that's the kind of stuff, stopped myself from swearing, that we are contending with when we carve a path. There's a point at which you're going to meet Demeter. I can't talk. There's a car alarm going off. I don't know if you can hear it. My mic's really good at cutting out background information, but my ADHD is not. So the car alarm, I'm like, what am I saying? Wee, wee, wee. But like that's where we end up contending when we're carving a path that is our own. And you're hanging out you're getting plucked up by a giant. You are suddenly stumbling like Yvonne through the forest and wandering into Baba Yaga's hut. You are tripping through the underworld. And when you are able to come out the other side of that, then you have pomegranate seeds in your steps. Oh, it stopped. I was probably shouting over it too, sorry. Then you have pomegranate seeds in your steps. Then you have something that you can deliver back to your community from a clean place and from a place where you're a safe person. The safest people are people that have been to the underworld. And again, I'm not telling you to go live a chaotic lifestyle and go looking for Baba Yaga. She'll come all on her own, don't you worry. But also don't waste a good crisis. Douglas, I have to give a tip of the hat. My teacher, Douglas, he always says, never waste a good crisis. You know, when it comes, again, don't go chasing after Baba Yaga, but when it comes, don't waste it. That was the longest answer ever to Tiffany's question because I don't remember what I said, but it was about carving your own path. And Doug Martin says there's a little lonesomeness is the price of deepening. Because there's stuff that you can only do in yourself, even when you're in a beautiful partnership, right? Even when you have an amazing husband or an amazing wife or an amazing girlfriend or whatever it is, there's things that we have to do in our inner realms on our own, and that can be very scary for our partners, right? And that's another place in this story. Like sometimes when I read that story that I was telling you, if I think about it on a relational level, sometimes I can feel sympathy for the one-eyed man because he's actually out in the forest doing his deepening work and calling the sun up, and she can't handle his essence. And that's sad too. Do you know what I mean? It's another piece of the story, right? Like she flees from his essence. It's too much for her. And that's very sad for him. And then that begs the question of, you know, did she enter into the marriage going, I'll change him? Do you know what I mean? Because that's never a good idea. You know, so there's all these aspects to these stories. There's always another little door of it, you know. So anyway, that was an extra few minutes of teaching. Anything else? I got so nervous Michelle was here, you guys, because she studies with one of my mythology teachers of a long time too. And so it's really challenging when someone that you know has heard your teacher, who is like the master, listen to you tell a story that you know for a fact they have heard from the master because you were sitting in a room with them listening to the master tell this story like not very long ago. So I saw Michelle's face and I was like, oh Lord. So it's good for our bravery and our courage, right? No matter how long I've been doing this work for 20 some years and telling stories since I was 12 years old. And it's amazing how quickly out of nowhere, one person's presence, the stage fright comes like a wave. Just gonna name that.
It's okay. No worries, sweetie.
No, I know it is, but you know, it's good to hear. I feel like some of these people are in my yoga teacher training and stuff, and I feel like it's nice to hear like the teacher gets nervous still, you know. I always tell people that if I don't get nervous anymore, it's probably when I should stop doing my job, you know, because if something has died, you know, when you're not even a little nervous anymore, because nervous and excitement are really close things. Anyway, anything else, darlings? Thank you, Rachel's partner. I don't know your name, but thank you for joining the Dangerous Women today. It was an honor to have you. Well, I will send the recording out in case you were like, wow, I really want to hear even just the story again, or those of you that missed the beginning of it. Probably not till tomorrow because I need to make a little grocery store run before the shops close. It's nighttime for me, but lovely to be with you all. And thank you so much. Thank you, Claire. It's really nice to see you. I'll be seeing you
And
soon.
you, thank you.
We've got some the sessions are beginning again, so I will see you very soon.
Great. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.